Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Griefdrums, and today we're going to be taking a look at Border. This is the rework coming as part of Operation Crimson Heist. As I said in one of my other videos, I'm actually really surprised that this was the map that we're getting this season. And the reason I say that is because Crimson Heist kind of led me to believe it was going to be Bank that we were going to be getting. Now, I really think that Bank could have done with a bit of an overhaul. I still really enjoy the map, but I kind of expected that to be the map we were getting. Nevertheless, we are over here on Border where the rework has taken place, and we're going to have a bit of a walk around, and we're going to take a look at some of the things that have changed on this map just to bring you up to speed. Now, the first thing to pay attention to is these speakers up here that make the noise. The guy that gives it the whole do not attempt to board the helicopter, all that jazz, he still does that. However, it's been massively toned down during the actual game phase. So he'll do it during the prep phase, but you can't really hear it during the main game. So coming out of the eastern spawn just over here, you will notice that this wall has all been sealed up to prevent the spawn peaks that used to come out from the office window. So that's a really nice little change. It's kind of destroyed my Carly angle though that I used to hold from on top of here all the way through, which is a real disappointment for me, but nevertheless. The other thing here is this entire wall, this entire section has been padded out, and there is a brand new staircase here as well, which leads up on the outside up towards the east stairs just over there, and the archive door just here. So you can actually hold through to archives from here. It does make it a little bit more interesting. You don't have to rappel. It's not really sort of a commitment sort of thing like you would have previously, where if you rappelled on here and sort of jumped in, you were committed to being stuck here. There are other ways to get away from here now, which is kind of nice actually. It's a nice little change. Let's stick with the outside first. Let's have a run around the outside, and then we'll go in and we'll start looking at some of the interior. But yeah, obviously this entire section here has been padded out, and that's the bathroom. I'll explain all of that in just a second. The rest of this out here is reasonably similar. There is one little change to the vents area over here though. You'll notice that this is now completely gone. You used to have one of these here, one of these air conditioning unit style things that you could hide behind and contest onto the windows. It's now gone. You have no cover as an attacker here. So if anyone's peeking from the window of armory lockers, or if the archives window gets opened, you don't have anywhere near as much cover. So it's kind of scary playing up here now. It's not nice, but nevertheless it's still doable. Continuing around the outside of the map, you'll notice that most of it is fairly similar. There's a few little changes here and there where some little items have been removed, but the windows and stuff are the same. As far as the main wall for the armory lockers goes though, you'll notice that this area has now been sealed up. Previously it was open like the rest of these, and it's been completely sealed up. Now this actually kind of works two ways. Firstly, it stops the run out from security or CCTV, so that they can't get an early spawn peak angle. That was a pretty common run out where players would come running out and they would just light people up that were running from over there. That isn't possible anymore. The other thing about this is once you're up here, it's surprisingly difficult. Previously, you'd be able to sort of hold a soft angle on the rappel onto the door, so if anyone came out, you could take them out. Now you're not going to be able to do that. The closest you're going to get is probably this bit here, which is a bit more of an aggressive angle, but it's not really a negative. It's, you know, it's still quite an interesting change. Now, as far as this bit goes, this was all open as well, I believe. You used to be able to hold a long angle as Carly all the way down. It's not possible anymore. It's all been sealed. And subsequently, because of that, the lighting is all changed under here. It's a lot darker. A lot of my settings for this, during this test server, I can't actually change them. For whatever reason, they've decided to completely lock it all in to the max settings. So we've got things like bloom and lens flare on. So if any of it does look different, that is probably why. Cameras and everything are all in the same place outside. As far as doors going in, the map layout is pretty similar to what it was. You'll notice that the two windows that were here and here have now been closed up, and this one on the right is now available to be used, and it leads you straight in to a brand new balcony. Now, before we come onto the balcony and have a proper look at that, we'll go in through this way, because you will notice that as you come in towards the top of East Stairs, it's changed a little bit, the layout. So that door used to be along here, and instead it's been moved further away, and the triple wall that leads into the office is now interior. Now, previously, obviously, when you used to rappel up here, you would come up and you would try and take out this triple wall, but now it's on the inside, so defenders are actually going to be able to play from inside of here. It's going to be risky, though, isn't it? It's going to be a real pinch point, but it means you may not have to reinforce this as a defender. Instead, you could actually open some of them and use it to have rotates out and into East. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how that plays out. Now, moving on to this section, this is the new balcony that I was discussing that sits over the top of the lobby. The balcony offers a different rotation for a defender. Previously, you'd get to the top of East if you were trying to do some crazy flank, and you'd be so limited, you really would. You could have someone outside holding. You couldn't really push down this corridor because you'd have people playing off punch holes through in CC. Well, now you can actually just push around this way should you want to. It's another way for the attackers to have to worry about if they get control of this side of the map. And it's a change that I really like, actually. I really do. I was quite surprised that there is only still 2 sets of stairs, though, on the interior of the map. There's still only the metal stairs and the East stairs, so roaming is still reasonably challenging. I was kind of expecting there to be a ladder to here, honestly. I don't know how much benefit that would honestly provide. I really don't. But I thought another way up was in the works, but it isn't, unfortunately. We've got 2 sets of stairs, and we're going to have to just run with that. You'll notice that a lot of the map has been cleaned up, though. A lot of these sort of structures that were here previously are still here. You've still got the mattress there. You've still got, I think it was a generator and stuff here previously. But you've still got that sort of, you know, bit of cover that was there. But instead it's been tidied up, cleaned up, and it's a lot more obvious if drones and stuff are knocking around. There are a few changes to the rooftop. This section here previously, where you would have a lot of people sort of just watching down through the hole in the roof, I guess it is. It has been changed quite substantially. This wall has been raised by quite a lot. Now, there are little sections here that you can see which do allow you to get angles onto East. You can still get a bit of an angle should you want to. It's far from ideal, though. It's definitely not going to be brilliant, and it's going to be a lot more challenging to hold these sort of rotates. And the other thing is you can hold the East door, but someone could be sneaking through this doorway, or vice versa. It's going to be tough to hold both. And the other option for this is the fact that obviously if you're holding this, there's only 3 places that you could potentially be because you can't see over the rest of it. All of the floorway in the hall is still completely destructible. That hasn't changed at all. Inside of the office, however, there are some changes, as I mentioned earlier. The archives, this entire section here has been pushed out further. Previously, if you remember, there was basically a half wall that ran across here, and there was like a desk and stuff over there. Now that's not the case. Instead, this goes straight into archives, which is now a much bigger site. This is a hell of a lot bigger. So it actually gives a bit of room as a defender to be able to move around rather than just being boxed in. And instead of just sort of leaving the majority of archives and holding it externally, you don't have to now. You can actually stay in here. You do have to reinforce this wall and be careful of this window. I suppose you could potentially play a mirror on there if you wanted to, but I'm not sure how well that's going to work. And this wall just here looks back towards that. So, you know, there are some real lines of sight that could be got from attackers that are pushing in. Coming back onto this hallway, though, while we're just here, you'll notice that this is slightly different. Now, previously on the map, all the way along the corridor, you had these sort of archways. And the coach for G2, Shaz, mentioned a while back about a castle buff and saying, you know what, it would be really cool if Castle could place his barricades halfway down a hallway and sort of change it up. And the specific example he used was this area here. He said, you know, if you could box this off and make rotates, or, you know, change it up so you can actually just remodel the map a little bit, that would be really interesting as a change to castle. Well, what they've done is they've actually gone ahead and done it so that you can now barricade both this one and this section here. You can reinforce this if you want to. I keep dropping the diffuser. I'm not on defense. I keep pressing F to barricade stuff and reinforce stuff, and I can't because I'm not on defense. But there are loads of different things you can do. You can really change up the layout of the map depending on how you want to play it. You can put castle barricades in all sorts of different places now, and it makes it a little bit interesting. As far as security goes, or CCTV, whatever you want to call this, again, it's been cleaned up entirely. It's had a bit of the stadium treatment, if you will. Really, really tidied up. Still plays reasonably similarly, although you do have a wall here that you can peek over the top of should you want to. Could be interesting for holding if you are playing on attack. Could be interesting for catching people out if you're playing on defense. It'd be interesting to see how it works. I think I could have said interesting a couple more times then. Now, this video, the format is obviously very, very different to how I would normally do these kind of videos. I am going to try and do some tips and tricks and breakdowns for this particular map. The only concern I have at the minute is I'm very, very pushed for time as to when I can do this. We have got a very limited amount of time on this test server this time, unfortunately, and I really wanted to get a bit of a rough guide out for the map, just so you can see what changes there are before the actual test server drops. So, as far as armory lockers goes, we've had the stadium treatment inside of here as well. If you've been playing the SI map, you will know that in the middle of the site, they've added these lockers. The layout is almost identical to the stadium map. It's obviously different aesthetic, but the layout is identical. This floor is all completely solid now. Prior to this, Bandit was... When the map first dropped, Bandit was really, really good, because you'd be able to Bandit trick all of these walls. You'd be able to reinforce them, and Bandit would just sit here chucking his batteries down on them. And as time went on, people said, well, we're just going to send people below, just send a Zofia or Buck. And Bandit didn't stand a chance because the entire floor was soft. So after a little bit longer, Kaid then sort of came to the forefront, where you would go ahead and chuck an Electrocore up here and one directly above this, so that both of the walls would be safe and people couldn't get it from below because of the fact that it was directly above the cabinet. Things have continued to move on and move on and move on, and people have found different ways to get rid of all of this utility. And now the devs have said, you know what, let's just make it easier. Let's make it so Bandit is viable as well, and you can legitimately trick this again. It's going to be able to... You're going to be able to play directly from here without the fear of getting taken out from below, which is really interesting. Now, this site I do believe is going to play out fairly similarly for the defense. I really do. I don't think there's going to be much change at all. And I'm just trying to think, like, I mean, the strangest thing is the map. From when we've been playing it, there hasn't been much difference. Now, that might just be a meta thing. It might just be a case of taking a little bit of time to really find and fine-tune how we're playing the map. It feels very similar. This is definitely the clubhouse or the consulate treatment, if you will. There's not much different, but probably just enough to freshen it up a little bit. Now, as far as metal goes, you will notice that this has had a bit of a rework as well. It looks a little bit different. You can no longer hold the long angles all the way down, because either side of the metal detector is actually completely solid. So placing a shield just inside of here could allow you some reasonable cover, actually. But that is obviously completely different. Other than that, I think that's about it for the top floor. I don't think there are any changes other than this hatch that was previously here has moved over to this section just over here, above customs, so you don't have as much of a controlling ability from the middle of here unless you open up a separate area. You can still get a line of sight down into this. However, the hatch itself doesn't offer as much of a good view without exposing all of your legs. Dropping down into customs itself, we're going to take a look at the walls over on the east side of this site. Previously, all 4 of these were soft. Now only 2 of them are, and 2 have been made completely solid. You'll notice that above, some of them are grated off and some of them aren't. So bandit tricking any walls over here, you're going to have to be careful of grenades coming over the top. The site has, again, had a bit of a cleanup. You'll notice it's just tidier. It really is. This box, the little office, has changed quite a bit. And the roof above that is actually destructible here is more obvious. Now, I really like this change because it sort of highlights whereabouts the room changes. So this section above is the break room. And by opening, or by having a different sort of texture, it identifies that really clearly, so you can see exactly which part you're opening up. That's the doorway coming into break room just up there. And then this section over here is all CCTV, security directly above it. And like I say, it's kind of like on Canal, that it clearly defines where the rooms are by having these different sort of textures and delineations, and I really like that. Okay, now when we move on to this section just through here, the detention center itself is exactly the same. No changes here at all that I've been able to see. However, we've got a new doorway that leads from the supply corridor into the supply room. This is a nice change. All of this is solid now. There is a drone hole just under here, so do be careful of that, especially with Flores in the game. But this panel here, now, I'm going to be honest, I don't think it's intentionally open. I know that sounds daft. I think the particular build that I am on right now, I think this is an error. I think there is supposed to be a wall there, kind of like this, because in some of the graphics and stuff that I've seen, it was completely sealed, and you can look all the way down outside of the map, which provides hours of entertainment. But I think this is just the particular build that I am on. For whatever reason, it's missing this. So I think hopefully on the live build, when it actually drops, it should be okay. It should be, you know, sort of all fixed and back to normal. The interesting thing about this, though, is this being open has allowed me to sort of take a look at the angles that we can get. I would love it if I could just turn these off and on in game, so I didn't have to go around and destroy all of the map. I could just instead open everything and see what we can see, because it does make a big difference. So I think rotates onto this particular bit here could be quite interesting actually to use, or at least lines of sight, because you could be able to play that from much further back, knowing that you can get an angle through there. The rest of this site plays reasonably similarly. You can go ahead and create some different sort of rotates and lines of sight that go out of the objective. You can obviously hold areas like that from just inside of here in the server room. And obviously test all of the doorways should you need to, just to stop anyone pressuring that window. Ventilation room is exactly the same, apart from the fact I think there were some boilers. I think these boilers came out a bit further. And obscured more of the line of sight. It's a bit more open now. Finally, we're going to start moving through towards the server room. Server room looks reasonably similar. Opened up a tiny little bit by the looks of it, but no real changes here other than, you know, sort of this going all the way to the ground. I think there was a little gap there previously, and this doorway has now been added just on that side, so you could potentially close that off. I don't really see much need to do that. I don't see why you would, because if anyone gets the hatch or drops to the back of sight, it's going to make it a bit challenging to retake it, but nevertheless you can. And the whole bit inside of here has just been tidied, cleaned, and just neatened up really. This was all open previously, and you'd be able to sort of lie down and get lines of sight through it. So as you are an attacker peeking this, it's going to be a lot easier to assess what is going on rather than loads of little sneaky spots. Now the final changes on the entire map are, you know, these doorways here you can castle barricade now. I don't think you could previously. And the shower room itself which was a particularly interesting bomb site, shall we say. I really liked it, actually. Has been opened up massively. Previously it used to end about here. Now it's been opened up entirely, and there's extra soft walls and a hatch that comes into here from the office area. But this allows for all sorts of different setups and rotates, which is pretty cool, actually. It's a nice change. I definitely think tellers could be a lot more viable now, with the right setup, obviously. The top of this wall as well is open, so it can allow for different things to be chucked over the top. If you've got Tachanka, you can put Tachanka fire grenades over the top. You can utilize smoke. And have we got 45 seconds before we end the video? Let's see if we can just fit in this one little angle that Orcs Gamer showed me. It was really nice, actually. He caught me out in the middle of a game, and I never expected it in a million years. But by coming up here into the office and shotgunning out that section there, that looks to outside, and he could see my feet as I came up to the window. I had absolutely no idea he was there.
You have been spotted.
But I'm going to cover that a little bit more inside of a video. We'll go through some tips and tricks of things that you can do on the new map that we may have just figured out. I don't know. We'll take a look at it. Like I say, it plays reasonably similarly, but on the whole, I really like it. It's interesting, to say the least. It's, I think, subtle changes that are really nice, actually, that are improving the flow of the map. Whether it's still going to be boring to play this map, I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, I'm afraid that's going to be it for today's video. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of the changes that are coming as part of this rework. Hopefully it gives you a bit of insight. As I say, I'm going to cover the video a lot more in depth. I'm going to go into the map and break down some of the lines of sight that we can now create and ways that we can hold these different sort of sites and the way they've changed. So keep an eye out for that, but I'm going to take my time making that. I don't really want to just sort of throw together a video for the sake of throwing it together. I actually want to research it and take my time making that kind of a video to ensure that the information that I'm giving is actually accurate. You know, I don't want to say, let's reinforce this wall here because it will provide this when it actually isn't that beneficial, if that makes sense. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that's it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you want any more information about Operation Crimson Heist, I have all sorts of other videos about Flores, about the roadmap for Year 6. So make sure to check those out. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, stay reckless and relentless.